Hey guys, Matthew. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the second update of Project Predicting Profitability. Now, one thing to note is that there won't be a webcam in this video because a lot of the information that I want you guys to see and a lot of numbers and breakdowns are going to be where my webcam typically is in the bottom left side of my screen. And I was too lazy to switch everything up, so I decided to just leave it like this. Another thing is, if you're looking for the information in terms of how to set up any of these farming methodologies that I'll be talking about today, you can look into the Casual Exile document, which is going to be linked in the description down below for that. So for example, if we look at Blight, which is one of the things I'll be talking about today, you can figure out easily how to set it up as well as the important points to remember when it comes to farming for Blights. So yeah, we're going to be looking at Blight, Harbingers, and Heist. I'm going to give you guys a bit of a rundown on the profitability as well as some thoughts on that for the data. So let's start with Blight. Now, Blight, I did a rusted Blight Scarab with no other investment whatsoever. So we were looking at about a 0.3 chaos investment per map, which is very, very low. And it was returning around 18 chaos per map. That means that's a return of investment of about 3,600%, which is absolutely nuts. I have to say, very, very happy with how Blight turned out. Now, looking at Blight, over the course of 238 maps, I farmed 217 Blighted maps. So this is pretty high. It means that almost every single map was giving me a Blighted map, and this is mostly due to the map that I was in, which is Toxic Sewer, because it's a very narrow map. Again, look into Casual Exile for additional information about that. One thing is that these maps are all equally weighted, so you have the same odds of getting a T16 and a T13, and that's kind of bad because people only really want T14 and above because that's where they get to drop golden oils. However, if you sell them in bulk and you kind of force people to take your T13s by, you know, giving them a better deal on T16s, most people will actually take them. And this comes out to about 11.75 chaos on average. So that is honestly a lot of currency. That alone is profitable over the course of these maps and not just a little bit. Next thing we're going to look at that is very consistent is oils, right? So one thing is any of these tests, I'm removing anything which is not considered consistent. For example, in these 238 maps, I farmed a lot of essences, right, from Blights. I farmed a lot of Scarabs. I farmed a lot of fossils. All of those things are removed as they are not things that you will get from one map to the next, like very, very consistent. So that's why I removed them. Also because I want to make these strategies look as bad as possible so that when you do it, you will always make more money than what you see. Now, one thing to note about that is that currently there's no implementations of these values in the Casual Exile document. We're probably going to wait until everything is said and done and then push them all at the same time. So I do apologize for that, but I still want to give you guys an update on these farming strategies and how good or bad they are. Okay, so looking at the oils about when it comes to Blighted maps, or Blight-in maps, I should say. Golden oils, silver oils, opalescent, and black are pretty simple, right? These are oils that you'll always pick up and always want to sell. There's high demand. They're easy to get rid of. Crimson, however, is a little bit harder. And now, why did I keep violet? Is because there's a sextant that gives you +1 to actual oil tiers, which means that these violet would essentially become crimsons. Because of this, I decided to keep them. And for the same reason, I decided to keep indigo, right? Because indigo would turn into violet, and then you can 3-to-1 those into crimson. And earlier on in the league, that would be quite decent. When crimsons are like 2 to 3C each, especially in bulk, you're looking at 60 to 90 chaos additional profit every 230 or 240 maps, which is overall just not that bad because it's just a few extra clicks, and you should be seeing them on your filter anyways. So that's kind of what's up with that. And then, yeah, otherwise, if we were using the Sextant, every silver would become golden, opalescent would become silver, and so on. So we will be accounting for the actual value of the Sextant and the profitability of it in the implementation, but for now, it's not there yet. Okay, next I looked into Harbingers. So Harbingers are actually surprisingly decent. I was expecting them to be worse, and that is because of this Sextant here. Harbingers drop additional currency shards. Now this seems to be some sort of multiplier or whatever to the currency shards drop, but it makes a massive difference. Matter of fact, I'm redoing this test right now because I want to do Gilded on Blight instead of Rusted, and I want to look at Harbingers without the Sextant instead of with, and I have to say that the differences are massive. Matter of fact, every single map, instead of making currency, I'm actually losing money with my current setup without the Sextant, and everything else is basically equal. So over the course of 240 maps, I farmed 1,531 Harbingers, 2 of them from the map device, 2 of them from a rusted Scarab, 1 of them from the actual Atlas, 1 of them from the Sextant, which is the one for the Harbingers drop additional currency shards, and of course also the native 1 or 8% chance for Harbinger, and I think 30% on the tree. totals out to about 1,531. And a lot of that is maps. There's actually a ton of maps which drops from these Harbingers. It's actually pretty crazy. 225 maps and 240 maps farmed, which means the Harbingers themselves and the monsters that they spawn are pretty much going to self-sustain all of your maps outside of anything else. So when maps are expensive, this is something to note. Especially, earlier on in the league. Now, at this point in the league, everyone's got their void stones, or the majority of people do, which makes map sustaining extremely easily. So we don't have to use like cartography, scarabs, or like juice or maps. It's super, super easy to sustain, but earlier on, this might not be the case. Okay, Ancient Orbs, 161 in 240 maps. This is pretty decent, honestly. They're not super common, but they are definitely common enough to where they make up for a large portion of this profit. Now, again, in a league start scenario, this would probably not be the case, as they would probably be very, very cheap, as nobody's really gambling. So that might affect the price, but the price of other things being higher and the price of, for example, Chaos being lower and Exalts being lower might just make up for that. Again, all of this is going to be automatically updated every few hours, so you are going to get a visual of exactly what to expect at any point in the league. So me telling you that right now Ancient Orbs are expensive will not change anything to the data that you will see in the Casual Exile document. Otherwise, the rest is pretty much just all currency, right? Because that's the only thing Harbingers drop, and we're not really picking up anything else from them. But yeah, so the breakdown is that every Harbinger was worth 4.78 Chaos, or when selling things in bulk, such as, mostly just Ancient Orbs, 5.3 Chaos per Harbinger. So you can add a Harbinger for 4 Chaos, and you can get 2 of them, so that's worth about 10C. So you're basically doubling your money. If you buy the Scarab for about 4 or 5C, you get 2 Harbinger, you're basically doubling your money. Over the course of my maps, I was making 30.5 Chaos per map, and 33.7 if accounting for bulk selling, which is quite a bit, honestly. However, note that this does not include any investment, right? So my investment was 4 Chaos for the Scarab, 4 Chaos for the map device, and about 9 Chaos for the Sextant, which I keep telling you guys about over and over. So in reality, my return on this investment was about 200%, which means I was essentially doubling my money, which is overall pretty decent. And finally, I want to talk quickly about Heist. Now, Heist is actually quite deceiving, no pun intended, because a lot of the contract prices are just wrong, right? So the way that we went about pricing these contracts and blueprints is that we used a bot that is directly available from TFT, which is basically TFT looking at all the listings of contracts and whatnot, using their bulk tools and all that, and it's trying to come up with essentially what's the value of these different contracts and blueprints. So over the course of 240 maps, I opened up quite a bit of caches and, of course, regular naturally spawned contracts, and I put them aside. So I got 7 blueprints and 96 contracts, and these were natural spawns without the cache, which amounts to about 1.91 Chaos per map, which is just overall really, really bad. There's just not enough blueprints, and the contracts themselves are also quite weak because a lot of them are just absolutely worthless. Now, with the Sextant, it was a lot better, 10.4 Chaos per map, and the reason for that is mostly blueprints, right? I found 64 blueprints, which is like, was that like 8 times or 9 times more blueprints than I found in the initial, free Heist, if you will. And this was including the actual nodes from Heist, and this is with the Sextant, which guarantees Heist, which is or Heist cache, I should say, which is always going to have, at least one. Well, actually, it's pretty much always only one contract, but sometimes more. But the vast majority of the time, it's only one. But sometimes, and a lot more than regularly, blueprints, which is a lot of the money. As you can see, 64 blueprints, and the average cost being 21 Chaos, looking at all the blueprints and then dividing them by the total. So that's a lot of currency that you're getting from these actual blueprints. Meanwhile, the actual contracts are a little bit deceiving because, yes, deception is expensive. Yes, you might be able to sell like perception and lockpicking at higher tiers or whatever. But overall, there's not too much demand for things like, for example, brute force, demolition, engineering, even to some extent counter-thaumaturgy, lockpicking. Nobody really wants these contracts anymore. They just want either deception or nothing, which makes it a little bit harder to sell, even bulk. However, in a league start scenario, earlier on in the league, I think that this would not be the case. You'd be able to easily sell all of your contracts, even the super bad ones, or the ones that no one really cares about, at least 1 to 2C each in bulk, and that would amount you quite a bit of money. And remember that this is all going to be automatically updated, so you won't have to worry about whether it's good or bad. As long as it says it's good, it's probably going to be good for the majority of the time. So that's pretty much all I have for the second update of Project Predicting Profitability. Hopefully you guys are still as hyped as I am for the upcoming data, as I'm constantly going to be running more and more maps. So before I go, as always, I do want to say a massive thank you to my supporters, so Rescarl, Brandon, welcome back, Thomas Mas, Nate, the Great Master, Alex, Tim, Mercury, Johnny, Nalfgar, Solomon, Exo, Jericosta, and Bizen, as well, of course, anyone else who is supporting in the past, anyone else who wishes to remain anonymous. Hopefully you guys are enjoying, this project, and I really hope that once it's all said and done and we have it implemented in the Casual Exile document, it's going to be absolutely fantastic and help out a bunch of y'all. Okay, that'll be Messi signing out until the next one. Peace.